This is Pam Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air with Ken Cox. He's the author of Reclaim Sobriety, 12 Rounds of Sobriety. Welcome to the Pam Electric Ghost podcast. How are you doing tonight?
I'm wonderful. How about you?
Doing pretty good. Yeah, we've been doing this for a while. We're on episode over 1,000 episodes now. So we've been happy to be in the podcast space since 2016. We do have your URL, but as you said, that'll be fully active tomorrow. So everybody be aware of that. But yeah, it's great to be talking to you tonight. And usually before we get into the heart of the interview, we ask a couple of questions of every guest that's on the show. So one of the questions we ask is like, what motivates you and why do you do what you do?
Wow, those are big questions. I'd like to say that I'm self-motivated, but that's all out of total selfishness. What motivates me on a daily basis is, the cheap answers are my family, my job, stuff like that. What I've learned in the past couple of years is what really motivates me is seeing the influence that I can have on younger generations and helping them through trying times and helping them develop a mindset of abundance and security other than this mindset of fear and lack of abundance.
Yeah, I think that's really important because a lot of times people are trying to find out like what is their story and how are they going to be successful actually, becoming, uh, you know, actually activating themselves is like self to activate. How do you actually make that happen and self actualize? And a lot of times that we got a lot of roadblocks, sometimes from childhood, imposter syndrome, all kinds of things, narcissism that was involved when you're younger. And I'm just wondering, like, when you got into this to your story, like to tell your story, what made you want to write that book?
Oh, so writing that book, it's kind of funny. I've had an interesting life, right? And I've been seeing a therapist since the age of 7. And one of the very first therapies that I was ever assigned in my entire life was writing. Now, I'm a horrible writer. My handwriting is chicken scratch. I'm a child of the 70s. I do a lot of things left-handed, but I was forced to kind of live a right-handed world. I'm dyslexic. I've got all these weird issues. And, I didn't go through a normal elementary or junior high. I went through special school district. So I started writing very, very early in life. And I've always wanted to write, this book and this story. And I opened a boxing school about 8 years ago now, but I reimagined it about 4 years ago. And with that reimagining, we brought on a youth team and some other stuff. And I created these core values for my boxing team. And I thought, man, these core values would make a really great book. Like there's a lot of stuff in these core values that are really, really important. And I teach young men and women, I coach them from a mindset of 4th grade math to stepping into the ring on a Saturday night in front of thousands of people and competing in a combat sport. Mm-hmm. And I use these core values are a huge part of that, right? Because we instill them into these kids and they become that, they embody those core values. So I started writing the book just about the core values in the boxing school and stuff like that. But my addiction just kept seeping into everything in my life, and it seeped into the book too. And I sent it off to the editor about 2.5 years ago. And he goes, "It's okay." I'm like, "What are you talking about? This is great. These are great stories, right? There's blah, 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 and all this stuff." And he goes, "Yeah, but," he says, "you either need to make it all about the boxing or all about the booze or all about the recovery or all about this." He goes, "And you're just all over the place with these random ass stories about, so nobody knows this person, you, and it's kind of entertaining, but it would just be more impactful if you went to that." And I said, "Screw you. I'm gonna do what I want." But that was enough to make me sit back and sit on it for about 6 months, right? And I didn't publish that book. And I reimagined that book into what has become Reclaim Sobriety, the 12 Steps of Sobriety.
So you did? You ended up taking his advice and redoing a rewrite?
I mean, I hate to say yes, but yes. I want to be defiant and say no.
Yeah.
I told him to screw off, and I published it anyway, and it was a great success. But that didn't
Yeah,
happen. So I'm gonna
that's
have to live with
interesting.
reality.
But I think that's always a lot of times editors or like I'm in music and you work with producers and recording engineers and you come in a studio and you got your demo and you think it's like the hottest thing ever. Then the producer's like, that's not in a good key. That's like it's got the wrong beat, it's got the wrong chords. It's like you need to like and then you're like, what?
Yeah.
Like I was vibing on this and I thought it's this and that, and then you get mad and you're like, I don't know, and then you come back and you have to think about it. Because yeah, a lot of times, like initially, because a lot of times it's our baby. If you're a creator, like you got your baby, you got the thing you're working on, and when somebody gives you that initial feedback, you kind of get stung, right? And
Yes.
but I think as you get more mature in your artistic development, you start to say, you know what, I do need to look at that. And I think that there's a certain level, like in your life, where you get to that point where you're not like the 21-year-old that says like, I'm just gonna do what I want. I'm gonna be James Dean. I'm just gonna do what
Yeah.
go
I
out
mean,
there.
it's hard to leave that behind, and that's funny because I left the film and video world in my early 20s and said I'll return when I can do it on my terms because I just hated the bureaucracy and all the stuff that had to do with film and video at the time. And I went into the internet instead, which ended up being a wild west for a good 15, 20 years for me. But now all the bureaucracy is coming to this industry as well. So
Yeah, yeah. There's always some bureaucratic control mechanism and the algorithms, and you're stuck. There's like, now I gotta satisfy that.
yeah,
Now there are actually rules, and I gotta follow the SEO. I gotta follow this. I gotta follow that.
right.
Um, it just seems like, but when you got into this telling this story from a point of like, either you're a teacher, like if you've been, you're a coach, you're working, with the boxing. So the parallels between like the 12 rounds, right, of boxing, it's like the discipline of an athlete, like putting those hours
Yeah,
in.
so a lot of things when I stepped back and I looked at all the programs that I had been through and what I had learned, right? So AA obviously has the 12 steps, but there's some inherent problems with AA and given and for
Mhm.
specifically inherent problems for a highly functioning executive that is not going to give over control to anybody, much less
Mm.
say I'm helpless in this matter, right?
Yeah.
So it's important to be able to recognize it and make that change. And I think AA is wonderful for that, but it wasn't something that promoted no relapses or long-term abstinence in my mind. I love smart recovery, and a lot of my program, is I'm certified smart recovery practitioner, right? So love it. I still go to my smart recovery group almost every single week. I love recovery dharma, right? The concepts behind Buddhism and that there is suffering and that there's an end to suffering. And I went through for my own coaching and my own marketing career. I've gone through cognitive flow coaching training. So I'm a certified cognitive flow coach. So I understand the dopamine and all those things. And I've gone through all of these and I really just stepped back and I looked at all of it. And I took the 12 rounds of a boxing. I took the 12 steps in
Mhm.
AA. I took my 12 core values that I've trained my team. I mashed those together, took the
Yeah.
4 elements of Dharma and the 4 elements of smart recovery. I put all those together into one big mess. And so I've taken those programs, pieces from all of them, added cognitive flow training, so with some neurolinguistic programming, and I wrote the book. And it's basically stories and tool sets and when to use different tools. Some of the tools are very unique just to me. They're my invention. Some of them are reimaginations of the emotion wheel, right? The hierarchy of values, very standardized coaching mechanisms. But the other thing that I found in the groups is there's no coaches there, right? There's nobody helping you to hold yourself accountable.
Mm.
There's a sponsor in AA. Smart Recovery doesn't have that, and there's nobody that's going to help guide you through the changing of mindset and re-identifying who you are as a human. And I believe that post post-alcohol addiction. That's what you have to do
Yeah,
if
that
you
makes
want
a
to live
lot
a
of
happy,
sense.
happy life.
Well, I mean, you think about it, like if you really need, like if you from the I know the sports analogy, like every athlete needs that coach, they need the trainer, they need that person to get them. And like when you're first a musician, you need your you know your sensei. You know, you need somebody to actually get you to learn how to practice, learn how to actually master your instrument. And what I think with a lot of times with creativity, what I always love is this idea of expansion, of expansiveness, right? The idea that you can mix things, and you just kind of describe kind of like this cook, like you're mixing things together, you're coming up with a new recipe. And a lot of times in art, you know, sometimes people are told, oh, you gotta stay in this lane, you gotta stay in this genre, you gotta stay in this canon. Well, I've always been, you know, kind of interested in people like Miles Davis. Is like you're the bebop king, and then you go into fusion.
Right.
And then people tell you like, "Oh, you're Judas. Why'd you do that?" You know, just like Dylan. When Dylan went electric and people were like yells, "You're Judas," and he yells, "I don't believe you," right? Because why not? Like, why can't I mix folk with electric? Why can't I
Yeah.
mix blues with cosmic? Why can't I do that? And I think when you start to synthesize something, it's actually your voice and your experience and your human individual individuality. And I think that makes it more authentic. It thinks it makes it more connected, and then you're probably going to reach people because they're not knowing they don't think you're just doing some sales call. That you're just repeating something everybody else is repeating.
Absolutely. Yeah. The book, you know, I framed it a little different than a normal book. We start, you know, chapter one's called the weigh-ins, and then the next chapters are the rounds, and then the last chapter is the press conference, right? And then after that, there's, you know, some worksheets that you can download or use, you know, to help you with some of these things, and then reimagining some of the coaching things that are more specific to, you know, we call our team the Gladiators, and in the book I reference anybody that's fighting addiction as a gladiator, right? You're doing it, and it's a fight for sure, and you're doing it in front of an audience of the entire world, right? You're a raw nerve living on the planet, and everybody else is just, you know, has the opportunity to watch you. And you know, it takes a special skill set to get through that and be healthy, happy, and productive.
Well, I think it's also the idea, like, you know, I think some people get stuck in this kind of modern world where they think they're going to go through some program and then they're going to be done, right? And like the thing is like a lot of time things are like they're lifetime practices that you're going to actually have to stay in, that you're probably going to continue to have to meet your advocate or your coach or something. That you're not going to be able to just, oh, I'm done. It's like a lot of times in art, it's like you're never done, right? Until you're not here. Like you're not done because you always have the opportunity to do something better or learn or evolve or understand there's going to be, you know, waves. It's not going to be all calm ocean, right? Like it's not always going to be perfect.
Funny story. I spent about 20 hours on the title, 12 Rounds of Sobriety. And I could, you know, because my editor was like, it needs to be 12 rounds too, like give them the destination and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, that implies they'll be done when this is over. And that's not it. This is a toolbox. And they're always going to be in this fight. And the second that, you know, just like in a boxing match, if you put your guard down, you're in a dangerous position. Right. Anytime you drop your guard, you are in a dangerous position. And with addiction, I think that holds true for the rest of your life. So this is an ongoing thing for the rest of your life that you'll have. But hopefully you develop the tools and they come to you just as fast as slamming on the brakes when you see the brake light in front of you, right, in the car. That's kind of the goal, is to get these tools readily available to you to use out of your arsenal at a moment's notice when you need them. And you know, I talk to my wife all the time. We say, you know, she's like, well, now you know, he says it and you get it. I'm like, well, or you know, she says, oh, now I understand. You said it differently this time. And that holds true, right? So maybe I can say something in a way that somebody that understands it, that they haven't understood it that way before, right? And I think it's important to have different voices saying it in different ways. And, you know, hopefully that's what it takes for somebody to absorb it.
Yeah, because there's a lot of times like people need that kind of individual attention, and people try to create these cookie cutter, and everybody likes to clone things. Everybody likes to have have the same structure. But a
Yeah.
lot of times, like people forget, it's like, yeah, are you individuals or are we individuals or are we not? Like if you're trying to do some cookie cutter thing, well, that goes against individualism because not everybody's going to hear it the same way. I mean, they've done tons of studies. I was in sociology, and like what you hear, you could you do an assessment, and what you go and may say some statement, and you ask people, 12 people in a room, what did you actually hear? What did you actually get out of it? And you'll get wildly different points of view. And everybody thought they heard the same thing. Everybody speaks English, but they all heard
Yeah.
it a different way.
The push the meeting experiment. You know this one?
Yeah.
The meeting's on Wednesday and you push it 2 days. Is the meeting now on Friday or is it on Monday? And it's different for everybody. Right?
How people perceive things. It's so interesting. It's philosophical. You take philosophy class, and Camus and Sartre, and he's like, well, how do I actually look at this? Right. And then you start to like, oh wow, it's like it actually can be interpreted. And as a songwriter, like a lot of times we lose the original, like once the audience gets the song, they got the song. Now I could have had an original intent, but how people perceive it is based on their own individual life. And so I could have had a story, but how somebody reads that story, interprets that story is their own thing. And you kind of gotta like let it go. It's like I know what I wanted to say when I said it, but how my audience actually hears it is different. And when you start to understand that, then you can be like less controlling over the message.
Yes, it's so important because a song, if you give it to the world, and I'm not a songwriter, but I'm a huge fan of music. I worked in the music industry as a young man. Can change so many people's lives for the better in so many different ways, right? And if you allow that to happen, then you help. I mean, that would be the most moral thing to do, right? It would be the most good for the most amount of people by giving your art away and letting it affect people in positive ways, however it affected them the best, and be okay with that.
Yeah, I think it's just you have to take. I think a lot of people don't realize is like the mistakes, the perceived mistakes. Like I call like a lot of times in our art, I call things like happy accidents rather than saying it's a mistake, because a lot of times the thing that I did not plan actually ends up being better than what I did plan. And being able to actually recognize it when that kind of muse thing happens and actually going with it rather than being so anal about saying, hey, I wanted it to be this and now it's this. So it's X, it was X and now it's Y and I hate Y. Like, well, maybe Y is better than what X was, And so that's a hard thing for people to get to because a lot of times people want to control the moments. And sometimes the moments are not fully controllable.
Yes, and I have a lot of philosophies on that, and I'm happy to go into them. Somewhat bizarre philosophies, right? Being authentic is one of my core values that we teach all the time, and I think if you're truly operating in an authentic manner, then you're in the best possible place that you could possibly be. And if you're consistently seeking the thing that makes you that gives you the most joy in the world, if you're just acting on that at all times, and you reduce your expectations or just have no expectations, you're just enjoying what you're doing, then you can have a pretty happy life.
Yeah, because I think a lot of times it's like you're chasing. A lot of times we're chasing like the Joneses, or you're chasing these comparative things, right? So I knew some kids that when we started playing, if they couldn't sound like Jimmy Page, they gave up the guitar. Like if they couldn't sound, get anywhere near like Coltrane, is like, oh, I'm no, like, how could you ever get near it? Doesn't mean you shouldn't play, right? Doesn't mean, look at Lou Reed. He can't sing, but he's a poet, but he ends up being a singer.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
should you not sing just because you don't have the range of Marvin Gaye? It's like you have to start to look at like, can you be vulnerable? Can you be original? Or do you have to be the archetype? Can you be something else? Can you actually deal with actually the subtlety and the originality and vulnerability of you?
Yeah, I think you even mentioned Bob Dylan, right? He can't.
Yeah, Dylan.
You can't understand him say a word, but his art is phenomenal.
Yeah, his art is like unbelievable. I mean, I'm a big fan. I got all the Dylan you can get, and I've got And I always find he's like a chameleon. Like one day he's Arlo Guthrie, Woody Guthrie, then he's the nasal version, then he's like the Johnny Cash version. And he could change his voice, even though people say he can't sing. His voice has a lot of characters, like both,
Yeah,
like there's different versions of Dylan. You know,
I was talking with somebody the other day about my favorite concerts of all time, and Bob Dylan's my second favorite concert experience of my life. Was him and Willie Nelson singing Like a Rolling Stone together was just absolutely amazing. Like,
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Just chill, like just being there and seeing that, even like a small crowd, was just, one of the greatest concert experiences of my life.
I just think it's important for people to understand that, perfection can cause a lot of problems. In terms of like people can fall into like addictive behavior because they're trying to be so perfect without understanding that, we're human beings. And so like this idea of trying to fall into these archetypes of perfection can end up causing a lot of bad behaviors. But I don't know what's your opinion about, like, when you're looking at the different causes of addiction, and that's just, one of them. It's not the only.
Yeah, different causes of addiction is not something I look at or think about too much. Mine's super obvious. I've been drinking alcohol since the age of 2. Right. I grew up in a wild place. Right. I mean, there was liquor and drugs and women from a very, very early age. And I developed some very bizarre ideas of what it meant to be a man. Right? I had to reframe those entirely, had to reframe what it even is to be a man. Right. What does that mean to me? And it meant some pretty bad shit before. Right. So this journey to sobriety has enlightened me tremendously in so many different ways. And I believe that I'm just overall a better human because of it.
An ability to reframe and to kind of reprogram yourself. Some people, they run into the issue of like, they don't think they can change. Right? They think they're like stuck on the train. And to get into sobriety, you have to realize that that change is possible, right?
If you want to be happy, if you want to be miserable and, kicking sand the rest of your life, being pissed off that you can't do the thing that you want to do, because for me, that's what the programs ended up giving me, is this, okay, I can withstand, I can live this life, and I go to my meetings and I have these conversations, but I'm always this, by definition, this hollowed out person. Either I identify as an alcoholic and I stand up every day, hi, my name's Ken, I'm an alcoholic. Or I sit in a room and I say, hey, my name's Ken and I struggle with alcohol, right? I'm still identifying with that problem on a regular basis. And until, it is my belief, and a lot of neuroscience backs me up here, that until you change your mindset and change your beliefs of who you are as a human, that you're always going to have that struggle. And that's really what I try to give you the tools to do, is reframe who you are as a person in your own mind, right? And do that in a super positive way. There's no reason to talk bad about yourself on a regular basis. It's just absurd.
So the negative talk is like, sometimes you're saying some of the programs kind of keep you in this negative talk mode, where how are you ever going to really get to be self-actualized or get beyond that if you're always having this negative talk about the self? Like, if you have to kind of get to that self-love and be able to
love yourself. You have to you can quit and you can be a sober person for external forces. Absolutely you can. I don't believe that you can be happy until you've accepted who you are and you've reframed who you are to yourself. The struggling with addiction, or I am an alcoholic, when I'm super fortunate. I've gotten to take marketing classes from some of the best marketing people on the planet. I've written a book with Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank. I get to be around these super successful people, and I've not met one of them that doesn't believe in neuro-linguistic programming. Every single one of them. And whenever you sit down and just think about it at a very high, very, very high level without knowing any of the science, is if I sit down and I talk negative about myself, and calling myself an alcoholic, I think, is negative self-talk.
Yeah.
Or I sit down and I say, I'm a sober gladiator.
Yeah, it's a different mind frame. Yeah, I think it's like a Buddhist perspective. Like I'm a Nichiren Daishonin Buddhist, and the idea, like if you chant and you focus on, not that everything's going to be great, but if you have positive thoughts, that your positive thoughts affect your body, affect your soul, your mind, everything, the whole self, everything, all the pillars of a human being, and you can get yourself out of a hole by having like this kind of, and it's not magical. It's like your brain is very powerful, and if you focus and you talk, and like the thing about a Buddhist, we chant. We don't just keep it internal. We speak it out, and a lot of what we're speaking out is of affirmations of positivity of what we want to do, and then we can kind of force it. And so I believe the NLP that really works within that kind of frame. It's like if you put yourself in that frame, you can get out. You can do like anything.
Yes, absolutely. Now, I had to end up for my recovery, true recovery. I had to do EMDR, and I probably did about 150 sessions of EMDR to get through some of the stuff. And I'm not sure that I'm through all of it. I'm sure there's some trap doors left out there somewhere that I've just not hit yet. But even the Buddhism, right? And then studying all these different factions of the world, the Om and all that stuff, when you realize that you go through, I got my certified breathing coach certificate, and you realize that you're activating your vagus nerve, and you're, while you're doing those breathing exercises in Buddhism and in yoga and all that stuff, and you realize that this is the stuff that religions are made out of.
Yeah.
Like, and I've never been a super religious person.
Yeah.
And this journey has led me to pantheism, whatever the hell that is, for sure. But it's a wild world, and the things that you tell yourself repeatedly are just true. They're true to you.
It's like you totally, like your mind is so powerful that if you put yourself in that negative frame, like it's a law of attraction. If I go into a negative space and I stay in that negative space, I'm going to bring negativity all around me, and then negative things are going to happen. And it's kind of it's self-fulfilling. Like, so if I start feeling, yes, I can, and some people will say, well, that's corny, or that's silly, or it's esoteric. It's like foo-foo. Like, but you're putting that in your head that it's foo-foo. So if you believe it's foo-foo, then it's not going to happen. Right. So a lot of it is like, it's like any of the great, like, thought leaders or mentors that are putting these things out, and people are going, L. Ron Hubbard, we're seeing all this stuff. They'll go because people are focusing. Like when you focus, now you can have a focus and it could come out in a negative way, and you could think it's positive, but you can go any direction. Everything's possible. So It's not all perfect. So it's like you got to be mindful of what you're going toward.
Yeah. And when I like to collapse things and blow things up and kind of inflate them back and forth. And when you take the religious aspect of as above, so below, and you take that down to your body and your mind, like, so in whatever's in your head is in your body. Like that really does hold true. You can not hold too many emotions at the same time. And I can choose to be happy. I can choose to tell myself jokes. I can choose to do that, right? It's hard to understand that when you're in those moments of when you're, there's the chemical imbalance. We can't really help that, right? Yeah. There's tools that we can do to help it. Cold water plunges, exercise, good diet. But when you go off the rails, it's really, really hard to get yourself back to that spot. But the more practice you do, the better you get at it.
Yeah, it's like the 10,000 hours of anything. Like, it's like a lot of people like, well, they can understand it when I'm a bass player, put the 10,000 hours in there. I'm the basketball player, put the 3-point shot in. But then they don't think about like you can train your mind in the same way. You could get yourself into as like thinking practices that are going to put you in a better frame so that you can be successful. But like in the back of your head, if you still got that inner child that's got that, imposter syndrome, and they still listen to their dad saying they can't do it, you're never good enough, that's still there. If you ever get beyond that,
right,
then you're just going to keep on hitting the wall. You're going to keep on making it happen. You're going to keep on failing. Right.
absolutely, yeah. You're just going to keep running into it. So it's a big challenge to have, and recognizing it, I think, is hard. Right. A lot of people talk about the gift of alcoholism after recovery, right? And that you've spent so much time in the dumps, and literally to get to where we're at today, the amount of work that we have to put into ourselves to get over it is tremendous. I've not put more effort into anything else in my life. And it's to stop drinking poison. It seems so bizarre, but
the work you put in, like the work you put in to get into over anything, as like the adversity in itself. You can see it from art.
And you come out with all this knowledge. And
a lot of artists, they went through so much adversity, right? In order to get through it, they lived through like that kind of crucible. And then
some artists, I don't understand how they are so brilliant at such young ages.
Well, sometimes it's like, I don't know, it's past life.
It has to be. I was watching, I didn't appreciate it when I was younger, and I don't know the artist's name, but it's Rage Against the Machine, Killing in the Name of.
Oh, I know that song.
And I saw the kid, from the concert in the 90s, and he's singing that song, and I'm like, how in the hell does this something-year-old kid get this kind of raw knowledge of existence on the planet?
I sometimes I believe like the muse. Like I think there's a lot of people could be born really young artists, like all the Beethoven, Chopin, great artists. I seem to have a very young capability, right? I think they kind of are in tune. Like sometimes in the arts, what I've seen is people are in tune, kind of like the inner and the outer, and they can channel, and they don't have anybody like in their head telling them they can't. And so that's the big thing. Like, so when you can channel and then you're open, then the human possibility of what we can do is immense. But so many people restrict their possibility that then you say, well, how can somebody even do that? Because you're limiting. You're not thinking like you have a lot of capability you don't even use. Right.
Yes.
And these people are using that capability. They found a way to do it. And I think that's what it is. Like anybody who's performing at that crazy level, at whatever they can do at that level, found a way to do that, right? Where a lot of people can't tap into it because they don't know how to.
So you think they've tapped into something and that it's not some innate knowledge that they have?
I think human beings have creative capabilities, and some people have more capability than others.
Right.
But they just might have the eye-hand coordination, the body for it, and then the mental is a really big piece of it. Because there's a lot of guys that are really good musicians, very well trained, but they never get to be as big as Hendrix, right?
Right.
Hendrix comes along, he's able to perceive stuff and pull stuff in. Guy went to Berkeley, could have a PhD, but like he doesn't pull it like the way Hendrix pulled, or pull like Coltrane, or pull like Davis. It's like because some people can actually do it, right? And they just don't have the wall there to stop them.
Yeah. John Lennon's probably one of my favorite artists of all time. And, he thought that Imagine was not good. It was a B-side album. It was B-side in the original. He's like, yeah, it's just something I've been working on. Did not think it. And to me, it's one of the most profound pieces of music that I know about, right? That I'm aware of.
Yeah. A lot of artists don't know their own work, and they really need people around them. Cause I've seen it a lot of times where they have these gems and they don't think it's a gem, right? Yeah. Because they're too close to it. So they don't perceive it as a gem because they have so many things. It's like they don't see the value because it's like, and it happens a lot.
I think, this book is, I think, coming in at about 160, 180 pages, somewhere around there. and I've thrown away hundreds of thousands of pages that I could ever be seen, right? So
Yeah, you
I
don't
get it.
know. Sometimes you throw it at the wall because like I've learned as I get older as a musician to sometimes just throw things against the wall on SoundCloud or something, and just to see what happens. And some stuff that I didn't think was any good.
Yeah, well, that's like
Suddenly,
Gary did,
you
right? He just played.
you just do it. You just put it out there, and then you find that there's an audience. And now we have a ways to do that. You can get your essays or things that you could just put out. And I do recommend to people like because you don't as an artist sometimes you don't know how good
No,
what you have is good. So maybe you put it out as an essay somewhere, you throw it, then maybe you put it under a pseudonym or something, but you put it out
yes.
just because you don't know, because you can be your worst critic yourself.
Well, and I think there's a difference between who you're making it for, right? A lot of this book I wrote because I had to write it. I needed to go through that process of getting all this out, right? It was a big part for me. Now, if I didn't share it, I think that would be very selfish, right?
So you had a goal.
I don't know that I didn't sit down with the goal in the beginning, right? I was kind of aggravated that I needed to make this book the way I made it when the editor said, "Hey, you need to reframe it this
Oh,
way,"
yeah.
right? Aggravated. I sat on it for 6 months after that. I didn't even look at it again. I was so angry, and I'm like, he didn't know anything. This would be a better way to go. But when I sat down and started going, and everything felt right this time. Like all the roadblocks kind of fell, and we moved forward. I've got some pretty cool celebrity endorsements that have had the book a little bit early and have read it and give little snippets on the back already. So it's been a tremendous amount of fun, and what the future holds. And I hope that at the end of the day, if it helps one person, it's a success. But I think that this particular book can help thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people out there that are in that particular case scenario, high functioning. They take control of themselves. Generally, executives, I think, would probably be a really good fit for this. And anybody suffering from PAWS, which is just post-acute withdrawal syndrome, which is just hell on earth.
Well, I think it's real important to like take your lessons learned, and if you can, through experience, we're like the best teachers. Like people who have gone through it can be the best teachers. Like it's like you have these people who are just academic and they didn't actually live through it, right? And they just analyze it.
Yeah, it's different.
It's different. I mean, you can look at it from a doctor's point of view and they can analyze it. But if you actually have somebody that went through something and then they can actually speak to it and then have the empathy to like, okay, I want to help other people who may be feeling the same way or going through the same things.
Right.
And it's that kind of, did you have mentors who helped you like get to this place where you felt like you could like mentor other people? Did you have people that helped you before you got to this point?
Absolutely. And, I go through, I've had a tremendous amount of mentors in my life. I wrote a paper, a short article, I guess about 2 years ago. I took some time to reflect on my childhood. And I wrote just a paper about my early influences in life that were positive, right? I had a lot of negative. I mean, I grew up in a town where, I could walk down the street and rub my hand on, remove the fog from the window and look into the strip club, right? That's the kind of place that I grew up in, right? And my stepdad would be sitting on the bar stool, right? Mm-hmm. So I didn't have a lot of positive influences growing up, right? I grew up lots of criminals, lots of drugs, but where I did find mentors as a young man was my first job. I was 11 years old. I got working as a busboy at this restaurant called Baker's Restaurant. And Ray Baker was the owner, and he taught me, how to keep different stashes of money on your body, right? Keep a little in your sock, one in your pocket. Like he taught me these kinds of things to live my life in this neighborhood that I was living in. And he treated me as an equal, right? And then my next job was, at a pizza joint. Ben was a born again Christian, and he was the first person I could have deep conversations about religion with without like fighting about it, right? And that was, you know, one of my mentors. And then the guy that owned the pool hall would let me come and clean the pool tables for free pool time, right? Like all of these small business owners, the guy that owned the local slot car track would let me solder cars together for the older guys because I could see it and do it. Like they taught me how to do business, and they taught me that there was other ways. Because if it was my stepdad, I was like, oh, just, you know, drop out of school when you turn 16 and get a factory job, and you'll, you know, press widgets on the line, and that's what we do. And we, you know, we work the shift that they give us, and after we drink beer with our buddies in the parking lot. Like that's life, and that's, you know, what they were trying to raise me to be, which is just bizarre as hell to me. But these local business owners, I got to see that from a different perspective.
Their entrepreneurship. So you got to see people who are entrepreneurs that had their own thing.
Right. And these men took me under their, I mean, they helped me in tremendous ways, and they probably don't even know it. And I try to thank them through the universe as much as I can. And now, so today I try to be that for other young men and women, right? I have my boxing school. We've got the data center. You know, we hire kids for tech support. We hire trainers at the gym. We hire, you know, young kids as front desk. And then we really try to, you know, make sure that they have a fun, safe place to be and exist. And, you know, try to teach them as much as I possibly can, because those kinds of mentors as a young man helped me tremendously. Since then, I've had other mentors, but none quite as important as those young ones.
Yeah, it's foundational. Like if you can have people like you're at those early stages, because there's so many things are formative. If you can have people that show you another path. Because a lot of times, like your parents are the primary path. Like they're the ones that say, well, you're going to go work in a factory. You're going to go be a doctor. You're going to be a lawyer. You're going to do this. You're going to go be in the family business, and you got to do it.
Yeah.
And so you end up being the kind of like, you know, stuck on that train.
Yeah. I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up, but I knew it wasn't what they had. But I knew that for sure, right? I don't want what you have, which is my mom was a bartender. My dad was a baker, right? And they worked and they drank and they partied and they slept. That was their life, right? But they partied all weekend. They lived for that, right? And it just wasn't something.
So that wasn't working. But at least it wasn't going to work.
5 days of my life for two. It just didn't seem.
Yeah, doesn't seem like don't you want the 5 days to be something you want to do, not just to get to the 2 days that you want to do.
Yeah, and I don't know if I talk about this in the book or in some of my other writings, but for a long time as a kid, I thought life was a punishment. Like I thought that. And then
you could think that based on what you're saying, yeah.
And then now I'm looking at it like, wow, this gift that we get to do all of, like, I don't know that, and people don't know this. They can wake up and do whatever the hell they want to do. They don't.
Yeah. Like, we're kind of put in a box. I think that ends up being the problem why people end up being like dissatisfied, and then they look for things to make them happy. So they get those 2 days on the weekend where they go into stuff. And like you're saying, it's like, do you really want to be 5 days doing like hell to get to 2 days of excitement? There really isn't heaven.
Yeah. And, you know, I talk to people,
you know, how do you get to that? How do you get out of that?
All the time. Like, you know, the guys that I know that run cable or electricians and plumbers, you know, they get home at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, or they go to the bar until 8 o'clock at night and they get home then. But I'm like, what do you do? Like, they're tired. I'm like, what are you doing from 5 o'clock to midnight every day? Like, what is that? Like, and that to me is just so much time to do things that you like to do. I can't imagine being stuck in a 9 to 5 job or a 7 to 3:30 job, not liking it and not taking some kind of action on those other 8 hours that you have every single day to build something and create something that would help you benefit for life.
Well, sometimes the structure of society makes us feel like we need to be that widget or that person on the line to actually be like part of society. And it's like, it's kind of a risky thought to go do the thing that you want to do. It's like an artist, like they always look at us as like, you're crazy. Like, why are you doing something like that? Like, why are you painting? Why are you painting? Why are you doing it? Like, that's not what you're supposed to be an accountant. You know, you're supposed
to be. Rockefeller wanted us that way.
Yeah. There's somebody that kind of needed you to be that way.
I mean, we designed our school systems like this, a little over 100 years ago. And, we get made fun of when we step out of line in elementary school, and we get shunned. So we start conforming to what everybody else looks like. I sat with a friend of mine, acquaintance of mine, I guess, Quentin. He owns blackowned.com. And we sat in Vegas and we talked. And he said something to me one day that struck, and it's never left me. He said, "Do you know how Europeanized I've had to make myself just to live in existence in this country?"
Yeah.
Right. And then I thought about that, and I'm like, well, that's everybody. Like, I think that's more obvious for him in a lot of ways, right? From a lot of cultures coming to America. But everybody has that problem of conforming to the norm, to not be shunned or shut out, or
he wants to be the outsider. It's very tribal, kind of, because like to survive in the tribe, you couldn't be like, they're gonna kick you out, and if they kick you out, you're gonna die. So I think that kind of mindset is, I got to be part of the crowd because I don't want to die. Not that you would die today because you're not getting thrown out to the wolves, but you still think you are. So people want to belong, and they want to be part of the inside game, the inside structure. They don't want to go outside. And the problem today is, because I'm in IT, it's my day job. Like I'm a designer, I'm a software designer. Right. But the thing is that's going on is, like, there's a revolution with robotics, automation, and AI. And it's getting to the point where now the business community wants people who are critical thinkers, but our school systems don't create critical thinkers, and they want artists. But for years they said they didn't want artists, and they didn't want critical thinkers. Now suddenly, because the technology is wiping out jobs right and left, now they want people to ramp up and suddenly be critical thinkers when they're not.
Yeah.
So it's going to cause like a little bit of a disaster, because there's a lot of people that weren't really given that. Now they're going to have to be forced into it.
Not to get too political, but we've literally beaten and murdered it out of us.
Yeah.
Like creativity has been beaten and murdered out of mankind. Yep. And luckily it's still here a little bit, right? And to be alive today is just so cool.
It's cool, but there's a lot
to see the digital art revolution. To be part of that is just phenomenal. Like digital art, in 100 years from now, who knows what it's going to be, right? Cyberpunks are going to be in a museum.
Yeah.
Right? Like crypto kitties are going to be in museums in 100 years from now. To be able to create at such breakneck speed.
The creative capabilities, like I say, from a 3D printer to a kid being able to use automations and all kinds of robotics, you could have a micro company that could do something that a big company with thousands of workers, like, you could actually do something. You could actually build something, right? Where before there's no way you could do it without the assembly line, without this, without that. Now you actually can do things. And the thing is, it's like there's a young generation that understands it and can jump right into it, but there's a whole generation of people that don't really know what's going on. And so the thing I worry about is the generation of the people that don't understand. Like, now you can actually dream it and make it happen. But if you have all those problems that you never resolved, you're never going to think you can. So they kind of need your book to your mindset to be in the right place for the way things are right now.
Absolutely. I mean, the laborer in 10 years is gone.
Yeah.
The driver, the cross-country driver, maybe the last mile driver stays around. But long distance driving's gone.
Uber driving, taxi driving, all those things can be replaced.
Or not can, or.
Yeah.
All the restaurant workers.
Yeah. They're McDonald's that can run with nobody in them.
Yeah.
They're 7-Elevens that can run with nobody in them. And Absolutely. So then the thing is, like, now you have to have a job where you're using your creativity, right? You're using it, and you have to sell. The one thing every human being has is themselves, right? Is their self, and that is totally different than anybody else. And so you could come up with something that's valuable, but if you don't believe that you are valuable, then you're never going to do it.
Right. Absolutely. It's going to be super interesting to see the transition from, we were a manufacturing country, and now for the last several decades, we've been a service industry country, right? We've just been servicing each other. And I think the next round is going to be just entertaining each other, because with robotics, I mean, no dangerous job is going to be done by a human in 10 years from today. Nothing dangerous is going to be done by a human, right?
Yeah.
So I think, it's going to be servicing each other and entertaining each other. That's
And then if you can get into the mind space where you can create and you come up with ideas, right? It's going to be kind of idea generation time, like dream time, like that you should not be
and
scared.
Execution, right? I think for the next 10 years, the people that have it good, and I'm super thankful to be in the position that I'm at, is orchestrators. People that can take these different pieces of technology and meld them together into one cohesive piece, I think is where the money's going to be for the next 10 years.
Because where I am in technology, like I'm a business system analyst, and what we're doing today is we're figuring out how to take all the old technologies, all the mainframes, all the old stuff, and integrate, blockchain and AI. And so what my role is kind of an orchestrator. I take technologies like AI and blockchain or whatever is next, and then try to take all that legacy stuff and get it into the learning libraries, get it into the thing, and be able to understand, like, I have to understand the business. So I have to understand what the business is. So you need to have somebody who understands the business to teach the robots what to do, to teach the AI what to do. And then you orchestrate it, and you have to have ethics, and you have to have understanding of customer interaction. So there's some things the computer doesn't know, right? Yet, at least now. At some point, even
but it knows how to grow food.
Like,
like.
But it's wide open, because there still is the couple of things, like the machine still at the heart of the machine. It still just knows zeros and ones, right?
Yes.
The heart of the machine just knows yes and no. The problem, it doesn't know gray areas. It doesn't understand ethics. It doesn't understand privacy. It doesn't understand creativity. It can help with creativity, but it doesn't really understand it. Right? It's not sentient. So that's our advantage. So as a human being, when like it's not sentient, it doesn't have that kind of dreaming thing where it just dreams things up. That's our edge. And so
I think we're AI today, and I went through MIT's program for AI for business last year. And today, AI lives in a world where it's wonderful for inciting creativity, like looking for creative ideas and having something to bounce off there, and then refining work, specifically written work, right? Refining, being my book today, edited, putting into a GPT to edit for spelling and grammar, way easier than me, spending hours with the actual editor going, no, that's not what I meant at all. I just spelled that wrong word so wrong that it means something else. And going through that process and having that real-time collaboration with the GPT today is, if used properly, outstanding.
Well, it's outstanding because it helps us, like, as analysts, like, we can go and have it help do research. Like, if I have to learn how to do the prompt engineering, it's all about prompt engineering. And basically, it's like a lawyer or like any kind of liberal arts thing, and knowing how to ask a question.
Yes.
If you think about like a really good legal case, right? It's like, how do you ask the question? How do you cite the information? How do you organize it? Right? That's what the lawyer does. Right.
Yes.
And that's kind of what the AI, you have to kind of have that lawyer mind with a little creativity to be able to ask it to give you the answer you're looking for. And then you have to kind of refine it with the prompt engineering. And there's creativity in that. There's and there are rules that you can put on it. There are rules about ethics and privacy and safe words and safe this and do that, don't do that. Understand these are rules. These, and if you don't put that in, it doesn't know. Right.
Exactly.
So the computer doesn't know about ethics. It doesn't know about privacy. It doesn't know about like stealing somebody's information. It's like, oh, it is, if it's there in the library, it's going to use it. Right.
Yes.
So you have to,
and not just use it, make predictions based on it.
Yeah, it's going to use it, whether it's right or wrong. Like somebody puts a fake piece of data and it thinks it's true. It's going to act like it's true.
Yes.
Because it doesn't know.
You can data stuff models. which I think that's a whole different,
whole kind of conversation.
Entirely different world of conversation. Of brute forcing data stuffing models.
You get hallucinations, what they call hallucinations. You get it to think it's something that's like, well, that's actually not right. But
that's the lost in the middle. And humans have that problem too, right? You get lost in the middle of stuff. You zone out in the middle of a TV show, right? So
yeah,
with the hook at the end, kind of zoned out in the middle. That happens a lot with AI and humans.
Yeah, well, if you have something that's time sensitive and it only goes up to 2015, and then you tell it to predict something about 2022, well, it only has data up to 2015. So it's gonna give you a hallucination if it tries to do something that it doesn't know. It's gonna give you something that's not correct, and it won't know that it's not correct. So then you still have to know.
Yeah, but they're saying that Q-Star solves that, right? Because it loops its predictions until it gets the right one. And
we'll see. Yeah, I mean, we're getting to points where eventually you'll have, Star Trek Next Generation level stuff, but we're not all the way there yet. We're not today.
Yeah, I think we're pretty far away. We can run a quantum computer for about a second. Right?
Yeah, you're not doing that stuff yet.
I think we're like at 100 qubits at that level for 1 second before it collapses. But I actually don't think we ever get to quantum computing. But
no, I don't know if we have the energy to do it with all the problems we have. With some of this computing takes so much energy, and we have finite resources. So at some point, it's going to have to be a debate. Like, how much energy can you use for this or not? And then that's going to be a conversation. But that's
but like quantum computing is literally trying to find the spark of creation, right? Mm-hmm. Like, and as soon as the thing is known, then it's collapsed. Like the quantumness of it collapses as soon as it's known. So I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
I could talk about that for days.
Yeah, that's a whole nother philosophical area. But I think what's really important, I think, for the reader to understand is like you kind of took on like a heavy thing with your own like life story, integrating like your struggles and turning it into strength. Right? That's the bottom line. You can take an individual struggles and you can take that and use it as like a resource.
Yes. And I go back to when I was a kid, I worked at Washington University while I attended classes there. And one of the professors used to have this learn, teach, do, learn, teach, do, learn, teach, do, learn, teach, do philosophy on everything. And I've really, stuck with that. And it's been in my mind. And
it's a mantra. That's a mantra. That's the thing.
If I really want to try to embrace something and know it at its core, try to teach somebody it. And then I'll be a master of it. Luckily for me, I've gotten to have a couple, a handful of coaching clients that I've used the program on, or not really program. It's more coaching. It's different for every human. Like, there's some fundamentals that you have to open your subconscious to programming, right? If you're a computer guy, that's your boot drive. What you wake up in your subconscious, that loads your operating system, which is your consciousness. If you can get that subconscious to truly believe that you're sober, then it's almost impossible to relapse throughout the day. Mm-hmm. Like if that's the mindset that you wake up in, your triggers dissolve. And it's the most bizarre thing for a person that literally would drive down the street and just drive past the gas station and get shakes, or walk into a Dollar General and see the alcohol aisle and freeze. Mm-hmm. Just like have a panic attack. To have, a defining moment in your life where the mindset changed and you flipped and he's like, I'm not that person anymore. And all of those things go away. They're just gone. They don't even exist anymore for me. Is wildly powerful. And if I can get there, I got to share that with somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to be able to get to that kind of brain hack to teach somebody how to get to controlling those triggers, which I think a lot of times, like in life, is like, we can control our triggers that are making us make like bad decisions, or
Yeah, and in reality, it just takes a couple of key things, right? You have to be willing to feel foolish to yourself. You don't have to do it in front of anybody else, right? But you got to do some awkward stuff. You got to look in the mirror and talk to yourself, right? Humans have a problem doing that. And then tell yourself things that you probably might not believe today. I love and respect you, Kenny. Yeah. Like, I love and respect you. You got to tell yourself that. If you
That
don't,
looking glass self. Like it's like kind of the Victorian poets had the looking glass self, and you got to look in that mirror talking. You look in the mirror, looking glass, and kind of actually dive into the soul, to dive into the self. And
yeah,
not everybody's willing to do that. And I think that's when you're willing to actually take a look at that looking glass self and actually start to have that conversation.
yeah,
That's when you start to make progress. Like once you realize that you can have that, you don't feel awkward about it. You start to get comfortable with it. I think that will get you in a way better place.
if you can look yourself in the mirror, if you had an alcohol addiction issue and you can truly look yourself in the mirror and say, I love and respect you and mean it and believe it, you're not going to drink. Just not going to do it. Right. So because you respect yourself and you wouldn't do that to somebody you respect.
Yeah, that starts with that self-love again. But like you mentioned, like reclaimsobriety.com/gift, that's the URL that will be active tomorrow. And you'll be able to click through on that. So if somebody does that, can you tell people what they're going to get?
So if you do that, what'll happen November 19th, the book's coming out, and you'll get an early release to the book. So you'll get just the paper copy once it's out, a PDF copy. We'll send that to you at no charge, downloadable. But then also you'll be put on the list that if you purchase the book from Amazon, it'll be available on Amazon. We're trying to get Barnes & Noble and other stuff as well. But you'll get lifetime access to my 4-week course, online on-demand course. You can go down. It's me walking you through some different worksheets, some different mindset tricks, things like that. And, we start with core values, hierarchy values. We do, we're going to help you build that core values for you, like, because they're personal to you. What do you care about in life? What do you want to achieve? And I'm going to walk you through that. It's 8 courses, and that's absolutely free to anybody that fills out the form and then buys a copy of the book. And that course is normally $4.99. So,
so by 9/4, that will be available everywhere the podcast is listened to or seen, and that link is part of the podcast description. I want to thank you for being a guest on the Family Like the Ghost podcast. We're just live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.